The old gray cat sat perfectly still on the windowsill, watching the autumn leaves dance across the front yard. His name was Milo, and for 7 peaceful years this house had been his kingdom. Every sunny spot on the carpet belonged to him. Every soft blanket on the couch was his throne. The family loved him, and he loved his quiet, predictable life. Milo's golden eyes followed a red leaf as it tumbled past the window. The house smelled like cinnamon and warmth. Somewhere in the kitchen, Sarah, the mother of the family, was preparing dinner. Her 10-year-old daughter Emma was doing homework at the table. Everything was exactly as it should be. But then Milo's ears turned slightly. He heard something, a car door closing, footsteps on the gravel driveway, and then another sound, a sound that made his fur stand up along his spine. It was a bark, distant at first, then closer. Milo's tail began to twitch. He pressed his nose against the cold glass, and what he saw made his heart sink. The father, David, was walking toward the house, but he was not alone. At the end of a bright blue leash was a creature Milo had only seen through windows and on television. A dog. A young golden retriever with floppy ears and a wagging tail that never seemed to stop moving. The front door opened, and cold autumn air rushed into the warm house. Milo jumped down from the windowsill and hid behind the living room curtain, peeking out with wide, frightened eyes. "Surprise!" David called out, his voice full of excitement. "Everyone, come meet the newest member of our family." Emma came running from the kitchen, her homework completely forgotten. When she saw the golden bundle of fur, she let out a squeal of pure joy and dropped to her knees. The dog immediately covered her face with sloppy kisses, his tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. "His name is Charlie," David explained, smiling at his daughter's happiness. "He's 2 years old and he was at the shelter for 3 months. No one wanted him because he's a little too energetic, but I thought he would be perfect for us." Sarah came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She laughed as Charlie tried to jump up and greet her too. "He certainly is friendly," she said. "But David, what about Milo?" The room went quiet for a moment. Everyone turned to look around the living room, searching for the old gray cat. Behind the curtain, Milo pressed himself flat against the wall.
Christmas.
His heart was pounding. This could not be happening. Dogs were loud. Dogs were messy. Dogs chased cats in every story he had ever sensed from the television. This golden creature with its enormous paws and dripping tongue was going to destroy everything Milo loved about his peaceful home. Charlie's nose began to twitch. He had caught a scent. Something interesting, something alive. His ears perked up and he began pulling toward the curtain, his tail wagging even faster. Milo held his breath. The curtain moved slightly. A cold, wet nose pushed through the fabric, and then suddenly Milo was face to face with Charlie. The dog's big brown eyes went wide with excitement. He let out a happy bark, a sound so loud and sudden that Milo felt it vibrate through his entire body. Pure instinct took over. Milo hissed with all his strength, his back arching high, his fur puffing out to make himself look twice his normal size. He raised one paw, claws extended, and swiped at the air in front of Charlie's nose. Charlie yelped and jumped backward, confused. He had only wanted to say hello. He had only wanted to make a new friend. Why was this fluffy gray creature so angry? "Milo, no!" Sarah rushed forward, but the cat was already running. He shot across the living room like a gray blur, knocking over a small vase of flowers on the side table. Water splashed across the wooden floor. Charlie, thinking this was some kind of game, began to chase. "Charlie, stop! Come back!" David grabbed for the leash, but it slipped through his fingers. The house exploded into chaos. Milo ran up the stairs, his claws scratching against the wooden steps. Charlie bounded after him, barking with pure joy, completely unaware that he was terrifying the cat. Emma was laughing. Sarah was shouting. David was chasing Charlie. And Milo had never been so scared in all his 7 years of life. He dove under Emma's bed, pressing himself into the darkest corner against the wall. A moment later, Charlie's big golden head appeared at the edge of the bed, his tongue hanging out, his tail still wagging. He barked again, a friendly invitation to play. But to Milo, it sounded like a threat. He hissed again, his ears flat against his head, his eyes wild with fear. David finally caught up and grabbed Charlie's leash. Okay, that's enough excitement for one day," he said, pulling the reluctant dog away from the bed. "Let's give Milo some space." As Charlie was led out of the room, he kept looking back over his shoulder. He did not understand what he had done wrong. He had just wanted to be friends. At the shelter, the other dogs had played with him. Why wouldn't this fluffy creature play too? The door closed and the room fell silent. Under the bed, Milo's heart was still racing. He stayed in the darkness for a long time, listening to the sounds of the house. He could hear Charlie downstairs, his paws clicking on the kitchen floor. He could hear the family laughing and talking, their voices full of love for this new animal. Something cold settled in Milo's chest. It was not just fear anymore. It was something deeper, something that felt like loneliness. For 7 years, he had been their only pet, their special boy. Now there was another animal in the house, an animal that was bigger, louder, and apparently more exciting than an old gray cat who liked to sleep in sunbeams. Milo curled into a tight ball, his tail wrapped around his nose. He closed his eyes, but he did not sleep. He listened, and he waited, and he wondered if his home would ever feel safe again. As night fell over the house, the family tried to establish some order. Charlie was given a soft bed in the corner of the kitchen, right next to the warm radiator. He had a new water bowl, a new food dish, and more toys than he had ever seen in his life at the shelter. But despite all these wonderful things, Charlie was not happy. He lay in his new bed, his chin resting on his paws, his brown eyes staring at the kitchen door. Somewhere in this house was that gray, fluffy creature. Charlie could smell him everywhere, on the couch, on the carpet, on the stairs. The scent was interesting and complex, like nothing Charlie had ever encountered before. At the shelter, Charlie had learned that being alone was the worst feeling in the world. He had watched other dogs get adopted, watched them leave with happy families, while he stayed behind in his cold kennel. The workers had been kind to him, but it was not the same as having a real home, a real family, real friends. Now he finally had a family, but there was someone in this house who did not want him here. Charlie could feel it, and it made his heart heavy. He let out a small whine and closed his eyes. Upstairs, hidden under Emma's bed, Milo heard that sound. It was soft, barely audible, but his sensitive ears caught it perfectly. The dog was whining. Why? Was he hurt? Was he sad? Milo pushed the thought away. He did not care about the dog. The dog was an intruder, an enemy. The dog had chased him and scared him and ruined his perfect evening. But the whining continued, drifting up through the floorboards like a ghost. Milo's ear twitched. He hated that sound. It made him feel strange, uncomfortable, almost guilty. No, he shook his head firmly. He would not feel guilty. This was his house. He had every right to be angry. But sleep did not come easily that night. Not for the old gray cat, and not for the young golden dog in the kitchen below.